So good day, friends. This is Dr. Bob Hamilton, and you have tuned in today to the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. So I thank you all for being here. It makes me happy in my heart to know that there are people out there who are hearing this conversation. And I also want to say thank you for making us part of your day. I know that all of you are busy people. You have a lot to watch on TV, like NPR and all sorts of other stuff. We'll talk about NPR a little bit later on. But you have a lot going on. You're raising children. If you're like my family, you're running around here and there trying to get them to all their practices, their schools, all the things they do, all good stuff. And the fact that you tune in makes me super duper happy. So thank you for being here. And if you like what you hear, I am doing my best to build an audience of people listening to me. So I can not so much for Dr. Bob, but for the people who I bring on my show. And today is no exception. I have a delightful woman who's an author. She's done some pretty interesting things in her life already. She's pretty young, but sorry for the ambulance here. So with that being said, I want to introduce everyone to Michaeleen Doucleff.
Ducleff.
Um,
Hi.
Michaeleen, welcome to the Hamilton Review.
Thank you for having me.
So I found Michaeleen through an article that she wrote in the Wall Street Journal. The article is entitled "My Family Went Off Ultra-Processed Foods for a Month. The Results Surprised Us." We're going to talk about that article in great depth in a moment. But before we do that, Michaeleen, we're going to have you kind of talk a little bit about yourself. So I'm gonna ask you if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself, kind of go back to where you grew up and your family and why you do what you do and where you went to school. And I will stop there and turn the microphone over to you.
Okay, so I grew up in a tiny town in Virginia, outside a tiny town. And on the ultra processed food front, we were pretty poor, and we actually ate a lot of food from a garden that we grew. But then I grew up big, and I went to college in Pasadena at Caltech, and so I spent time in Southern California. And then I went to grad school at Berkeley, and I got a PhD in chemistry. And I was going to be a scientist, a chemist. And about 2 years into my postdoc at NIH, I realized like I didn't want to be a scientist. I realized I didn't want to be a scientist at all, and I really wanted to be a writer. And I actually turned down a faculty position at the McKenna colleges in Claremont and started writing. And eventually, a couple years later, ended up at NPR as a global health correspondent. And I spent 13 years there. And while I was there, I traveled a bunch, multiple continents. I mostly covered infectious diseases, mostly kids. Um, Infectious diseases before COVID, and then more infectious diseases during COVID. But they would send me kind of around to different places when there were outbreaks, and I would
Yeah.
cover on the ground. But then I had a kid, I became
So
a mom. Yeah,
Michaeleen, so where this is fascinating to me. So you were NPR for 12 years, 13 years, you
13
said?
years. Hmm.
Wow. Okay. And I know that you were in Liberia because we talked about that right just a moment ago, covering the Ebola outbreak, which was
Hmm.
fascinating. But tell me, where else did you go?
So I spent some time in Borneo. That was a big place because that's where a bunch of the SARS-like viruses. This was pre-COVID. This was like
Yeah.
2017, I want to say.
Yeah. Okay.
But there was this big acknowledgement and this big work of like, there's some other SARS virus coming, probably from this area. So I spent time in Malaysia. I spent some time in Nepal. I spent some time in Mexico, and I actually spent a couple weeks. I've been up to the Arctic 3 times.
Wow.
So, um, yeah, those were kind of the major places. I spent some time other places in Africa, and in India. So it was a lot about, at first it was a lot of lab work, like covering studies, and then
Yeah.
it moved into more like going places and getting on the ground. And then when I became a mom in 2015, I was actually traveling down in Mexico to a little Maya village, and at the time my daughter was 2, and I was really struggling as a parent, like really struggling. Like nothing in my life prepared me to be a parent. Right? It was like, it was really shocking how bad my husband and I were. He's a computer scientist. And so we kind of gave up. We were kind of like, we had this wild toddler that we had no clue what to do with. I mean, she is like a firecracker. And I kind of gave up with it. I was like, she's gonna hate me. Like my whole life, this child's gonna hate me, and we're gonna be enemies. And then I went down to this little Maya village to do a story actually about attention in kids. I started kind of moving into kids more to save myself. And the parents there just shocked me. Like just the level of calmness with their children, the respect they gave their children, and then how great the children were in return. Like they were respectful to their parents, they were respectful to their siblings. And I started asking them and talking to them, like, what are you doing? Like, how do you do this? Like, what is going on? And that was really the seed that was planted to to write Hunt Gather Parent. So I did a couple NPR stories on that trip and some of the stuff I learned, but then it was like people wanted more. They wanted to learn more, and I wanted to learn more. And what I started to realize was, one, there are many cultures in the world that don't struggle with the things that we struggle with in America with kids. All cultures have their problems, but all cultures have their strengths too with children. And then second, if you look kind of around the world, you can find kind of this universal way of interacting with children. And that's what I really wanted to learn. I wanted to learn this approach. And what was very striking to me was every time I went home and I tried it with Rosie, my little girl, our relationship improved like immensely, like just with small changes. And so that's what Hunt Gather Parent is about. It's about like this universal way of treating a child that we've kind of either don't value or we've kind of forgotten here in the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah. So, a couple comments. Number one, I hear that what you just said about you were at the end of your rope in terms of little Miss Rosie here at 2 years of age. Well, 2 years of age, of course, is a bad time to kind of assess your parenting because these kids are totally out of control, and they're having tantrums, and you don't have to take it personally that it's against you all the time. But that's I wasn't your pediatrician. That's what I would have told you at the time. But the other thing too is that you know, you're right. I have been around the world and seen, parenting observations. I think that first of all, parents don't have the ability to do a lot of helicoptering in the third world. That's for darn sure, because they're trying to they're trying to take care of their own day by day food needs or whatever it may be. But tell us a couple of your takeaways. So when you were down in this Mexican village, was it a Mayan village? Is that what you
Yes, it
said?
was a
Yeah.
small Mayan village in the Yucatan.
Okay. So you were out there, and so tell me the takeaway that you had from that particular village. I'm curious.
Yeah, the major thing from there, and again, you can find this like, as you know, everywhere, is that children from a very young age are included in the parents' lives, right? There isn't this big separation between the child world and the adult world.
Yeah.
And what comes, and that's what Rosie really wanted. She wanted to be part of my life. She wanted to be
Yep.
part of our day-to-day chores and social activities. And so along with that, actually, the Maya have a way of putting it there. They say that every human being, no matter their age, has purpose and has value and can make contributions to the family and the community. And it's the
Yeah.
job of the parents to help facilitate that and find that. And so that's really the first part of Hunt Gather Parent is about this, like bridging that, kind of pulling down that wall between the adult world and the child world a little bit,
Yep.
just a little bit. They don't need a lot. And then finding ways that the child can really make meaningful contributions in the home, like very small children. And this was like a huge impact on our lives. I just basically stopped doing child-centered activities with Rosie, like just basically stopped. I was just like, I'm done with them, and found ways to make the activities on the weekends and in the afternoons things that I wanted to do, things I needed to do, and then finding ways to include her in that from a very young age.
So you kind of pull out of your mommy and me type of stuff, and
Yeah.
you started to do like take her to the grocery store, or
Yeah.
take her to the laundromat, or wherever you were
Yeah,
going.
or just make breakfast. Like instead of like, okay, we're gonna do like three different activities on Saturday morning. You know what? We're gonna make breakfast together. And I'm gonna find ways for you to help. And of course, we're gonna make a giant mess because I don't know what I'm doing with you and you don't know how to cook. But then that's gonna be the activity is like making the breakfast, cleaning up after the breakfast, and yeah, that's more
Okay,
than enough.
so let me interject something here. This is brilliant. People who are listening to the show, this is a incredibly beautiful little gift that we just got from Michaeleen. One of the things that really grieves me is how in our culture we have cohorted children and adults and teenagers and older people into boxes. So we don't have this intergenerational mixing that we historically you had in small towns in certainly in Europe, and because people all live together, families
Yeah.
live together, so your aunts, your older aunts and uncles, or your grandparents, or whatever, would all be kind of part of this family fabric. And we have broken that. We've broken it big time in America, and all of us, of course, that we all know, those listening realize that so many of our families are all over the place, all over the world sometimes, and so that little cohesive sense of community is problematic. And I think also, when you put the kindergartners with the kindergartners, period, they
Yes.
don't they don't know first grade, second grade, or anybody. They only know the kindergartners. This is something that has become, I think, more acute in the country because we live in these communities where we don't really know each other that much in the communities. So we tend to be cohorting, I think, even more than ever. And I I do my best. I think this is brilliant what you just said about including your daughter in what you're doing. So you kind of went beyond that and you started including your daughter even in your travels. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's fascinating is so then to write Hunk Other Parent, Rosie and I, when she was 3, went to 3 different little rural communities. We went back to the Maya village that it all started in. We went to a little fishing village in the Arctic called Kugarak. And we went to a hunter-gatherer community in rural Tanzania, in the bush, basically. We were camping. And I basically said to these families, like, help me, teach me. And one of the moms in the Arctic even said, like, you had no clue what you were doing. And now I think you know how to handle her more, or something like that. Like they really like, I'm so indebted to and grateful for these families. They really helped like taught me how to be a parent. They were that intergenerational thing you're talking about, right? They provided the knowledge and the wisdom. Um, and so that's what the book is about, is us on this journey and me learning how to relate to Rosie in a way that's respectful to her and
Yeah.
allows her to contribute, be part of my life. And I tell parents, and it's in the book, I say, if a child is misbehaving, even a small one, they want more responsibility. They want more purpose. They want to be part of your life. They're like screaming, like, look at me, I can help. And what's interesting is like right now we have this mental health crisis with teenagers. And for Dopamine Kids, the new book, I was reading a report about adolescent mental health, and it was all about this. It was all about having purpose and contributing and being part of meaningfully member of your family and your community. And while I was reading it, I was like, this is something that you can do from the beginning, and then when they're teenagers they know how to do it. It's
Yeah.
like they grows, like the contributions grow. Like now Rosie's 10 and she makes dinner some nights. She made a lasagna one night. She helps cook every night. She helps clean up every day. The contributions and the meaning have only grown. And now she's actually really helpful and useful. And but she knows what to do. She knows how to chop an onion, saute, bake,
Yeah.
but it starts with very, very, very tiny things. It's not, oh, come in here and unload the dishwasher and put the dishes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No, I
basically,
you're kind of reminding me a little bit of a gal who wrote a book, Leonore Skenazy, if you know her.
yes, I know her.
You know her?
Yes, we're friends.
She's your friend. Okay, well, I've interviewed Lenore, and I love her. I don't know her, but I love her. And she wrote the book Free Range Kids. And she got into so much trouble when she let her like 9-year-old son ride the subway alone or something. I mean, but she was teaching them how to be responsible. How about that one?
Yeah,
That if we're,
yeah,
in California, God forbid that you actually teach a child to be responsible for
yeah.
anything. But
Capable, right? Like capable of, like, I think in many cultures, the role of the parent is to teach the child to be a capable, contributing adult.
that's right.
And I think we've forgotten that. We think kids really want to be entertained, instructed. But I think what I see is kids want to learn how to be responsible and capable.
Yeah. So when you were in the Arctic, at what was the name of the community?
It's called Kugarok. It's in Canada,
Okay, Kukarak.
northern Canada.
So
Mhm.
what did you learn in Kukarak?
So the Inuit, that's what Europeans would call Eskimos. They're called the Inuit, the culture Inuit. They have these incredible tools for teaching children emotional regulation. And even as adults, they have this incredible emotional intelligence. And so that was really the focus there, was like learning how to teach Rosie to regulate her emotions. And it's
Yeah.
really, really striking. Like a 6-year-old up there has more emotional regulation than most adults in America. Like it's really, really striking. So they're an incredibly Pacific culture. Anger is like a really taboo, and there's a fascinating book called Never in Anger, written by an anthropologist in the 70s, I think, who lived actually in this area with a
Yeah.
family in an igloo for, like, she was there 18 months. They were in the igloo for a portion of the time, and she studied this emotional intelligence. And so we went up there, and it was incredible. We went narwhal hunting. It was an amazing experience.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I see that in my journeys around the world, in my medical teams too. I see kids who are, teenagers who are, I mean, well, first of all, the younger kids, even, 7, 8, 9 kids, 9-year-old kids are carrying around a new baby.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
kind of like just put them on their hip like like a mother. I mean, they
Yes.
hardly hold the kid. These are 8-year-old little girls walking around with a brand new baby, and you wonder how they can hold the kid, but they're kind of just taking care of the baby, walking around. And now, mind you, there's a mother nearby usually, but
Right.
you see these little girls just kind of grab the kids, and I'm sure you saw that when you were in Tanzania as well. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. So when we were with the Hadzabe, that's what they're called. They call themselves. The elementary kids were in school. They're sent to boarding school.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
the kids that were there were like 5 and under, and there was the little girl that was carrying the baby brother all the time. She's only 5. But what was really fascinating about that trip was, you like on this, what and also when we were in the Maya village, I started to understand this more, was you think the kids are alone, and the kids think they're alone. They're like just kind of roaming around. But what I learned was there's always somebody watching them,
Yeah.
because they were always watching me. I'd be out in the bush, like somewhere, and I think I'd by myself, and then one of the hunter-gatherer dads would like kind of, and then I talked to him, ask him about it, and he said, we're teaching kids to be autonomous, i.e. Lenore, to be able to take care of themselves, take care of each other, but
Right.
we're doing this in a way that keeps them safe, right? It's not just
Yeah.
like hands off, go do whatever. It's this, like, I say in Other Parents, like, you're in the wings, right? There's always a mom or a dad or an older sibling in the wings
Yeah.
watching, right? And
Yeah.
like holding back, really, and only stepping in when a child really needs it. I have a really good story about that in the Maya village. So I was watching one day this little like 3, 4-year-old try to ride this bicycle that was like way too big for her. Like, no way in the United States would any parent let her do it. She was hopping up onto the seat. She couldn't
Yeah.
touch the ground. She's like, and then rolling downhill and then hopping off and then doing it again and again. And I thought nobody was watching her. I thought I was the only one. And then she started going down this ravine, and 3 moms or women came from the sides and caught her. They were
Yeah.
watching the entire time, but they were like allowing her this space to experiment and be autonomous and try things.
Yeah.
So in this weird way, it's not helicoptering. They were kind of helicoptering, but they were like off in the distance, and the kid had no clue, right? And this is, I think this style of parenting is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But by the way, I just an aside here. What Micheline is referring to is she's referring to a little bit to her book, which is called Hunt, Gather, Parent. We are going to, if I can be so bold, if I'd like to ask you to come back on this show and talk about. I need to read the book. I have the book. I have not read the book. You know that. But I want to kind of segue to this article you wrote about
Yes.
processed foods, but I want you where you everyone listening, this is a preview, okay, to Micheline Doucleff's book Hunt, Gather, Parent. You can buy it. It was, by the way, New York Times bestseller, and you can find it on Amazon. The subtitle is "What Ancient Cultures Can Teach Us About the Lost Art of Raising Happy, Helpful Little Human Beings." And I first of all, I love the title and I love the subtitle, and I'll read it, and we're going to come back and have this conversation. All right? Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I want to get it on air so people hear you say yes. Okay, but we're gonna segue to the way I found you. Okay, I found you when I read your article, and again, the name was "My Family Went Off Ultra Processed Foods for a Month. The Results Surprised Us." Okay, I want you to kind of maybe lay a foundation and tell us what ultra processed foods are. You do kind of hit close to home on a couple of these, but we'll get to that in a second. But go ahead and first of all, your interest, how you got an interest in this particular topic, and what this all means.
So ultra processed foods, nobody agrees what they what they are. Scientists all disagree. But for me, like in practicality, I think the best way to think about it is any food that you can't really make in your kitchen or contains an ingredient that you don't have in your kitchen. That's how we as a family define it. And that way, Rosie, my daughter, who's 10 now, she can read the ingredients on a box of food or a carton and decide,
Yeah,
is this something we have in our kitchen or not? And then we also defined for our family like anything that had white flour in it, refined flour. Of course, you can buy that and have that in your kitchen, but in general, ultra processed foods come from a factory, right? And there's something that are made in a factory versus something that's grown or created in a small kitchen. So I got interested in it because I was really interested in the modern challenges that parents have today. So Hunt Gather Parent was all about this like ancient way, kind of deeply rooted parenting methods. And they work amazing on kids, but there's two places where they fail. They fail when it comes to screens, video games, social media, streaming, and they fail with ultra processed foods. And so I was because these are new inventions. Like we've never had food. Humans have never experienced the type of foods that we eat now. And in fact, companies have concocted versions of food that we've never encountered as a species. And so Dopamine Kids, my next book, is really about how these foods and technologies work on our brains, our kids' brains and our brains, and then what works to counter them, the antidotes for them. And I have to say, as a chemist, so I'm trained very, very rigorously as a chemist. As a chemist, I was really skeptical that ultra processed foods were doing anything to us. I was like, you've got carbohydrates, fat, fiber, you've got all the same molecules. How could this be doing anything to us different? How could the processing make such a big difference?
yeah,
Or some additives. So ultra processed foods often have additives, preservatives, emulsifiers, and natural and artificial flavors. Like, how could these tiny, tiny amounts of molecules really affect us? But while writing Dopamine Kids, I started playing around with like getting rid of them in our diet, and I started to feel really different and like
yeah.
notice big changes in my own self. And so this made me go on make this big experiment. I'll never forget. I was like, let's just do it. Let's spend a month and get rid of them all. Get rid of them from our house. and not buy them. And I have to say, after two weeks, I was stunned at how the transformation that I felt, and then what happened with Rosie, my little girl, was even more profound. I was really surprised by the effect of getting rid of them.
I mean, you have a list of foods here, and I'll read the list because I think it's important. You said, okay, you meant giving up a bunch of our favorite foods: Cheez-Its, Ritz crackers, Pirates booty, bagels, pita chips, milk chocolate, and flavored sparkling waters. Okay, well, you're hitting close to home here. Okay, first of all, there's nothing, I'm sorry, but there's nothing better in the world than Cheez-Its. Okay, let's just be honest about that. But you also mentioned bagels. I mean, I don't, you throw out your bagels too. So maybe you could tell us what things you got rid of and what things you kept.
I mean, I think you have to just think of the latter, because if you think about what you get rid of, it's basically everything. I mean, like we go into the grocery store and we really, there's not much we can buy. I mean, I'm being honest, besides the produce and the meat, right? And besides the like Whole Foods. Um, I mean, you can find a non-ultra processed spaghetti sauce, one or two brands. You can find some things like some of the pre-made like lentil dishes and stuff, you can find that have only whole ingredients in them.
Sure.
But I have to say it eliminates a huge amount of food. Like our food supply is so dominated by it. Like there's no crackers or breads in our grocery store in Texas that we can buy. I think maybe you might have some where you live, but now we make all of our bread in a bread machine. It's really not that hard. It took me a little while to figure out exactly how to do it so it actually puffs up and everything. But we don't really.
I think they call that yeast.
Well, it's very different with 100% whole grain. People don't realize. Yes, you have to do a couple things. I used my laboratory skills. Um, but like, yeah, like basically you go into a grocery store, you can't buy any beverages.
Yeah.
Because almost
Okay.
all,
And
yeah.
what's wrong with sparkling water? I mean, what about Pellegrino? I mean, is
So,
there?
so sparkling water by itself, totally fine. But most of them, the flavored ones, have natural flavors and artificial flavors in them. And some people might not be this strict about ultra processed foods and think, oh, artificial flavors, natural flavors are fine. But I personally leave them alone, and I can talk a little bit about the science behind it. But first of all, we don't know what they are, right? You know about this, right? That like the way it's set up in the US is the food company doesn't have to divulge what the compounds are. So I tell my daughter, like, you don't know what you're eating. We
Yeah.
don't know what we're eating. And then there's these fascinating studies out of Yale looking at how they affect your physiology. Some of them. I mean, there's just thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, right? There's just like, and so we stay away from those. But sparkling water, Topo Chico, non-flavored, totally fine. Um, but what ended up happening, and what was so stunning to me, was we, like, both of us, my daughter and I, stopped snacking. Like we like food cravings, like what scientists call cue-reactive eating, where you're eating because you always eat then, or because you drive by the Starbucks, or because like some cue in your environment, the smell,
Yeah.
the timing, like the ultra processed foods are really good at triggering that. And so you're not actually eating because you're like physiologically hungry or that hungry, maybe a little bit hungry. You're eating because of these cues that are triggering dopamine, and the dopamine says, I want this, go get this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the big shift, is like that just kind of goes away when you go back to only whole foods. And then what happens is, if you're not snacking throughout the day, you come to dinner and guess what happens? You're hungry.
You're hungry. Yeah. That's right.
And the kid is hungry. The kid hasn't eaten pirate's booty all day, and so all of a sudden the turkey meatball and the wild rice look really good and appetizing. And so about 2 or 3 weeks into this experiment, Rosie's like pickiness at dinner, just like poof, went away. Like she just
Wow.
started eating all these foods that she barely touched since she was like, a toddler.
Sure. Wow. So you saw now, was it tough to get her to go along with the scheme?
So a lot of Hunt Gather Parent is, I mean, sorry, a lot of Dopamine Kids, this new book, is about getting kids to go along with some schemes. And I think what the key really is like getting their buy-in. Well, in Dopamine Kids, I give you like this 5-step plan to get kids to change and to
By the way,
change
let
their
me let me
habits.
interject. Let me interject one real quickly. Okay, so Michaeleen has written a book called Dopamine Kids. This book is not out. Okay, so
That's
she's
right.
talking about a book that you think you can buy. You can't buy it. It's coming out in March of 26. Okay, so
Yes.
let's just get that clear. But
Thank you.
I will tell you that I've already pre-ordered the book, friends, and I'm going to read the book. The book is called Dopamine Kids: A Science-Based Plan to Rewire Your Child's Brain and Take Back Your Family in the Age of Screens and Ultra-Processed Foods. Okay, that's the big name.
Yes.
So this is going to be a worthwhile book. You can maybe pre-order it and give it to your friends for next year. But so you're okay. So we're talking. That's what Michaeleen is talking about. Dopamine Kids. You kind of put it on your radar, and we look forward to having it come out. Okay, sorry to interject, but
Oh,
I
no,
wanted.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think getting kids to buy into these changes and there's a few strategies you can use. And I talk about this is a lot of the book, Dopamine Kids. But in this case, I included Rosie in the process the whole time. She was 8 at the time when we did it. And it was like I explained to her, we talked about what ultra processed foods were. When I gave her the definition of it, I told her how it was like kind of pre-digested wheat or oats or potato and then kind of put back together, smashed back together. And she said, so it's like food that's been eaten and pooped out. I was like, well, maybe more like vomited, but yes. And then she said, so it's pooed. And I was like, yes, we're going to call it pooed. And so that's what we call it in our home, pooed. And she's been like a partner in it, right? Like I made her a partner and I made her like an accountability partner, right? Like help me with this. I need it
Yeah.
too, you
Well,
know? And then we went through the house, the pantry together, and she figured out what was food and we threw it out. And then together we went to the grocery store and it was like a scavenger hunt, go find the food that's not food. And so it was this really big thing. And we also agreed on some of the rules. So one of the things we found was that people give her food everywhere. Like everywhere we go, people give her food. And she can even say, like, I don't want it. And they will like continue to give it to her. And so we agreed that, she could there was some room for flexibility if people were giving
yeah,
it to her.
yeah.
And so that's how I got her to go on board with it. And she was a willing partner. She really enjoyed it. And I think she could feel the difference in how the food made her feel, a lot less being grumpy, and wanting hungry all the time. And her body runs better. And we talked about that as well.
So you're maintaining this little experiment that began 2 years ago. You're actually maintaining it right now.
Yeah, right now, like we keep it out of the house. My husband sometimes forgets what it is. But like, we keep it out of the house. I don't buy it. I tend not to eat it really ever. I really don't feel like mentally I feel so much better not eating
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
but outside the house, if people give it to her and she wants some, like it's really up to her. And so she's not like she never has it because it's everywhere. It really is, at least in my world here and what I've seen in San Francisco as well, it really is everywhere in children's lives.
Yeah. No, I,
So
I mean, I, some of my grandchildren play on sport teams, and after they have a practice or after they have a game, they kind of wheel in the goodies, and they have these sports drinks, or they have, even juices. These juices that
yeah,
come in little boxes and everything, and they're just rank with sugar, if nothing else, and everything else. And they have these little packages they pass out, little cookies and everything. So it's kind of like, whoa, I don't remember this when I was a kid, that we had a baseball, a practice of some kind, and all of a sudden the team mother kind of comes with all the stuff. So that is true. I think in children in particular, they're constantly being fed. Certainly, birthday parties are like
Yes.
wow, and Halloween is like double wow.
Yes.
Um, and so there's so many opportunities for kids to develop these poor eating habits, and it takes a lot of effort as a parent. You're kind of relaxed about that though. You allow her a little bit of liberty on that one.
I mean, I think what and as I talk about in the book, like keeping the home this like sanctuary for whole foods, right?
Yeah,
Is what is so important. Like, and I'm still talking to her about like what's in those snacks and how does that make you feel, and maybe just pick one of the five. Like it's not like I'm like just go wild when you're out of our house. That's the opportunity to help her learn about
yeah,
different types.
yeah, yeah.
But really it's about like when you're in the house, when you wake up in the morning, when after school, when you go to bed, like what are you putting in what is the main foundational thing you're putting in your body, and what habits are we creating, right? Like what am 15 years from now, how is her brain wired up for food? Like the home is this place where you make food together, you eat it together, and you celebrate and prioritize these foods that make us feel good. And so that's what that like I in the book I call them sanctuaries. Like we're building sanctuaries for activities and foods that we value and prioritize. And being out is a little more flexible because they're one-offs, right? Like, but her little brain knows, like, church potluck. She's ready. Like she knows where all the ultra processed food is like available in the town. I mean, it's very fascinating. And I talked to her about that. Like, wow, that's amazing that your brain like is keyed into that. And so yeah, so there's some
Yeah.
flexibility. Otherwise, it would be too stressful, I think. And we don't want to create stress. That's another part of Dopamine Kids is like we don't want stress around the good things in life, around the things that feel good and make us feel good and make us healthy. We want to celebrate and feel good about these things, not tense and
Yeah.
afraid.
So the result of this kind of change in your life is you've lost weight, you feel healthier, you feel you have more energy, or
Yeah. And I
tell
mean,
me.
mentally, like mood wise, I don't think I'm doing a story right now for NPR about mood and ultra processed food. People don't realize like there's really strong data linking like depression, anxiety to high ultra processed foods diets. And I can feel it. Like I can feel that I'm just more relaxed, and you don't go through all these swings all day of like hot energy and then low energy and moodiness and irritability, which I think because I think your blood sugar is more homeostatic,
Yeah,
and the mental health. I mean, I wasn't trying to lose weight; it just came off, and that's also been observed in a study now where people, if you just really remove the ultra processed food, you're going to naturally lose the weight because you stop this Q reactive eating so much. And there's studies now that show that people really overeat at meals with mostly ultra processed food. Like it triggers like hundreds of extra calories without
yep.
people really noticing it, knowing it. So
So give me an example. Okay, what did you have for breakfast today?
so this morning we had fresh bread from the bread machine, which I make overnight with
Okay,
olive oil. We've changed to olive oil. And what else do we? Apples and scrambled eggs.
okay, all right.
We
And what
almost
did
have
you
that
have?
almost every day. That or oatmeal.
Okay, well, that sounds good to me. What about lunch?
So I haven't eaten lunch yet, but I don't know what Rosie's eating. I think she's got like hummus and carrots, lots of nuts in the lunch with the bread, hummus and then what did we have last? Oh, last night it was so funny. I made butter chicken, the Indian dish.
Yeah.
And Rosie said, "How much butter is in this butter chicken?" And I was like, "None." She was like, "I knew it."
So it's a faux name.
There was a full
Butter
name.
chicken with butter chicken without butter. Okay, so when you invite me to dinner at your house there, what are you going to serve me for dinner?
We eat a
And
lot of
I don't want the butter chicken.
You know
I
what the
don't
butter
like
chicken? We eat a lot of beans. We eat a lot of beans. I am a huge, and Dopamine Kids has a whole chapter on fiber. I'm a huge fiber person and a bean person. We try to eat beans in almost every meal. We might serve you some Texas chili that I did, or like Tejano chili that I've been like working on. But lots and lots of beans, some fish, some frozen fish we get here that we lots of beans, chili, curries, lots of tofu, soybeans, and we've been more into vegetable dishes. Rosie now eats a lot more vegetables. She's not a huge fan of them, but she actually will try them. And meatballs, we make turkey meatballs, and so
Okay, it sounds good. I'm coming. So
a steak. I mean, we live in West Texas. We gotta serve you a steak.
okay, well that's good. Does that fit into your scheme of things allowable?
Yeah, like everything that's real, and that's the beauty of it is like anything that's real, that's got kind of the traditional way of making food, right?
Yeah,
And even some processed meats, we'll eat sausages and stuff, that's made with spices and salt and things that anything anybody ate 150 years ago, we'll
well,
definitely.
sure.
And the other thing is it's unlimited that. Like there's no restriction because I do believe our bodies are really good at regulating with whole foods and no
How
and kind
much
of
to
knowing.
actually how much to eat? Yeah.
Yes.
So one of my rules is if it comes in a package, it's probably not good. In other
Yeah.
words, anything like potato chips, obviously, and these power bars that the kids
Oh,
gobble up. Yeah, I mean you're shaking your head here. For those not watching her, yes, I mean a lot of these little they look really good. They're like granolas, and you kind of go that must be good as granola. But you're saying not no bueno.
no, I mean, I was kind of duped by those like high
Yeah,
protein, low sugar, even some high fiber. The problem is they're not. You've lost a lot of the matrix, the food matrix, because they're food components that have been extracted out, right?
yep,
The fiber, the wheat, and then put back together. And so, but you can also just go off how satisfied you feel. This I talk a lot about this in the book. Like when you eat something and you eat a significant quantity of it, you should not feel hungrier afterwards, right? Like this is what our foods do to us. We eat them and we become hungrier.
yeah,
When we eat something like a dinner or a big, a significant snack, you should feel satisfied. You should feel like, oh, I feel better and I'm less hungry. And if the food is making you feel the opposite, like I just want more, I think you need to
yeah,
pause and say, like, is this
yeah. Right.
really,
You're falling into the trap.
yeah.
And so, yep, I get it. Well, listen, I have to say thank you for your writing. I found your article in the Journal, Wall Street Journal, which was published back in August, but I finally found you. It took a while to find you, by the way. I tracked you down, but it's compelling, and I think that you're making a really good point. And I think everyone listening to this program today is a little convicted a little bit about possibly what we're eating and what we're not eating. But thank you for this. I'm looking forward to your book, Dopamine Kids. I really, really am. It sounds like you've really done your research. You're a chemist by so you know that your efforts in the chemistry lab were not for in vain. You're
Yes.
bringing that to you're bringing that to us along with all of your NPR experience and all of your interest of parenting as well. So thank you. You're an amazing person.
Oh, well,
Um,
thank you. Thank you for having me.
it's been a pleasure. So listen, friends, I'm watching our time here, and I'm good with making these shows digestible, so you don't feel like you have to spend hours with us. But so I'm going to, even though I could talk to you, Michaeleen, for hours on end here because you're fascinating. We're going to end this show right here. So thank you for taking the time to be on the Hamilton Review.
Thank you for having me.
And friends, those of you who are listening, thank you for joining us today. I hope you have gleaned lots of information here. And my hope too, and I have to do a little soul searching myself, is that this will change some of the way we look at foods and the kind of things we're putting into our bodies. Not only our bodies, but the children. I am a pediatrician, so I do have to hearken to what you're putting into your children's bodies too. So to all of you, thank you for tuning in and be well until next time. Bye bye.
You have been listening to the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your day. Tune in again next week on Apple Podcast. Rate and comment and tell a friend.